Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for Monday's edition, Wednesday's edition of Diamond Live. We come to your screens every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We do nothing but break down the day's biggest news stories. I don't know why I'm thinking, gentlemen, today is a Monday, but today is it's a Wednesday.
It's good you're not emotional today. It's very excited.
What do you mean I'm not emotional today?
Yeah, well, because, I mean, we're obviously going to touch on quite many critical issues today.
Oh, yeah?
And let's just be strong.
Speaking about let's be strong, today's edition of Diamond Live is a special edition because it's dedicated to you, the public, to call in and give us your contributions. We're going to have a number of topics on the table that we're going to be looking at, and we want for you to come through and give us your contributions over the topics that we are going to be having today. My name is Andrew Mwansa.
And I'm Cheswa. We're glad you could make time to join us on tonight's edition of Diamond Live.
My name is Chimweka, Chileshe. Great to be here. I hope you're well, gentlemen. Andrew Mwansa, hopefully you're well.
I'm well, Chimweka. How are you?
I'm good. Cheswa, Kapasa?
I'm well.
Yeah.
It's a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Started out, with a few showers today. I mean, getting into the rainy season. So I bet people are now adjusting to the weather as well. But quite a good day. It's been quite many things happening, both locally and internationally, and so I'm glad we're going to be talking about
what's happening internationally.
A lot, Andrew, a lot.
Yeah, it's got a lot happening actually internationally. Those who follow what's been happening, even just from within the region, on an entertainment note, there's an artist by the name of Forbes, also known as AKA. There's been a story around the suspected killers being arrested. And then, I mean, what was quite interesting was how, first of all, from what is coming up from that is that they're brothers, and they were being escorted into a plane, by the way, as they were moving from one city to the other. They were traveling via plane. I was reading a lot of comments, people saying, wow, suspected criminals are moving via flight. Criminality can actually get you on a flight. If you've never been on one, you can commit a crime and get on a flight. But obviously, there's different dimensions to it, considering the risk of everything and so on. But that's one of the stories.
Yeah, in fact, I think the prolonged matters in court were due to the fact that they would need to be extradited from Eswatini to South Africa. And so finally, that was done and they've been arrested. But may the soul of AKA rest in peace. But it's so ironic, Chimweka, that you spoke about AKA, because I've personally heard a lot of stories about yourself and AKA. And I'm told by other individuals that used to beat people when you're young, forcing people to call you AKA. I don't know how true that is.
I would just like to know, Andrew Mwansa, before you came for the show, where exactly were you before you?
Well, I'll tell you where I was.
Yes.
I was at Southern Sun Hotel, and I was with I was with a consortium of civil society organizations who are discussing the current process of constitutional amendments, and those Dr. Kaba and many others. That came through.
Well, at least you
where do you think I came from?
I don't. Maybe home. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you.
How does that fit into what we're talking about?
Because you seem very relaxed today. You seem very, very relaxed and refreshed. But at least you're not in Chingola. Neither were you in Monze, because today in a snap, our stories are coming through from there. So we'll start off our show with today in a snap. All right, let's get into our first story for tonight. Well, this is a story that's coming through really from Monday.
Yeah.
And again, the genesis of the story is around what happened over the weekend on Saturday in Chiwempala in Chingola, as President Hakainde Hichilema went to visit the traders there who've been affected. But I don't know if you gentlemen are aware of this, but apparently, cadarism is back.
Cadarism is back. I think it's a sad.
Well, is it back, or were we informed that?
Well, there's a video
that it will be back.
Well, there's a video coming through from Monze, a district chairman. Let's take a listen to.
And a member of parliament, Wengwa MP.
Sorry?
It's actually Wengwa MP, Kasauta.
Oh, let's take a listen to this.
Alimi bali ku Northern Province, alimi bonse bali ku Northwestern Province. Today we have declared cadarism has started working. President nebagagita declare no cadarism. Uzwani bagagita declare no cadarism. Twabona gwamba kuti ba president babaderera. Alimi twabona gwamba kuti alo inka mubayiderera. Now we want to show them the way we are.
So that's the situation there, gentlemen. And I just realized he's actually a member of parliament. I know this is a story that was carried out on prime television, but is a member of parliament actually saying that?
Of course, it's a member of parliament, Honorable Kasauta from Wengwa, is Wengwa MP, is declaring cadarism to be back. We did see that. Hours later, after that news bulletin was televised on prime television, we did see the Secretary General of the party, Honorable Imenda, getting to denounce that that's not the position of the party. I think the party, the UPND, has been very consistent when it comes to cadarism. In fact, the UPND National Youth Chairman, Gilbert Deswanenso, the one who is in charge, of the youth, has been very consistent on this issue that we are going to follow the presidential directive. The presidential directive is that there mustn't be cadarism in bus stops, there mustn't be cadarism anywhere. And I think this is what has been consistent. I think many people are shocked to have heard that coming from a senior UPND official, an elected UPND official, that declaring cadarism back. But also I think this has a background. The background is what happened in Chiwempala on the 8th of November, where President Hakainde Hichilema was stoned by illegal or small-scale miners, or should we say unruly, young people that stoned him, and they stoned him for one simple reason that is not yet established by the police. But I think one of the biggest issues that has come out there is that the young people of Chiwempala need sincerely mind to be opened and be given back to them. They need the dump site being given to them. The biggest issue that has come out of this Chiwempala unrest is the security of the president and it being at threat. Anything, gentlemen, could have happened to the Republican president if he wasn't well protected, especially during that particular incident. And I think for me, what happened today on the Copper Belt, where you saw several youths were marching in solidarity, I think you can see the picture in the background, in solidarity of what happened to the president, stating that the president is well protected, the president is not one that you can undermine. I think they needed to have done that on the day the president was in Chingola, as opposed to have it as an afterthought, because I know what is happening in the background here is that the president obviously is very upset that this happened in Chingola, and I'm pretty sure that the senior officials of the party in Chingola that would organize this march to show solidarity and all that. But I think for me, it might be seen as a good gesture by the members, the senior members of the UPND. I think it comes a little bit too late. And I'll say this, that look, in most countries, gentlemen, all right, and we mustn't underplay this, Chimweka and Cheswa, that in most countries, In Kenya, and I'll give a very practical example of Kenya because I was speaking to a colleague, in Kenya and another colleague in Zimbabwe, and they told me something very consistent, that when the president is moving to a place and is going to speak a political message or give hope to the people, he moves with the party structures. President Ruto moves with the party structures. President Mnangagwa moves with the party structures. Now, these party structures are being led by the national youth chairman. All right? Others would call them youth president. Others, youth league leader. In Zambia, I think I would count the number of times I've seen President Hakainde Hichilema with the UPND national youth chairman moving side by side, especially for.
So are you trying to say that he gets sidelined? And even with that, could it be a situation where does he have to wait for a call-up, or does he find himself there? Because we've also seen engagements where the president will be at, and the national youth chairman will find himself there, whether it was through invitation or whether he's going to use the party structures to find himself there, but he's there.
All the engagements with the president, when the president is moving, there's invitations that come to everyone, especially those that move with him side by side. There's invitations that come to there. I'm assuming, and I stand to be corrected, that maybe the chairman is not being invited. I'm assuming that probably the chairman is not being invited because...
chairman? Which chairman?
The national chairman.
I'm speaking about national chairman. And I'll give a practical example, even of the previous administration. There was not a single point in the previous administration that the party president would move for political engagements and the youth chairman is not there. In fact, you'd see that the reason for why many people hated the Patriotic Front was because before President Edgar Lungu speaks to marketeers in Chingola, speaks to marketeers in Soweto, you would see a number of youths marching to where he's supposed to be first. They will reach first.
Maybe we also need to assess.
Be able to establish the ground there for him when he arrives. The first people that are going to welcome him are his party, his party supporters.
Perhaps also need to assess the influence and command that also is there with the party structures in some of these places. For example, if we're going to talk about the National Youth Chairman, even away from the president moving, how often do we see the National Youth Chairman in some of these places? For example, the Copperbelt province.
And I think that's for me. That's my question. I think that for me, I think that's.
I mean, even away, because the thing is, we've seen the National Youth Chairman, for example, go to certain parts of this country, even when the president is not there.
He's not there.
So meaning he has that liberty of going around and speaking with people, even without the president being there on his own.
Those are, for me, from what I know.
So it starts from there, even before the president is going there. How much groundwork is done, even in your own capacity, without? Because then the thing is, definitely people also get to see the influence that people have. For example, in a certain place that, especially if you're from the party. Sometimes that influence cannot be ignored. For example, if you're going to be on the Copper Belt, we see this get to happen. If the president is on the Copper Belt, definitely you're going to have the Copper Belt minister there, who's also the UPND chairman. You also get to see some of the other members of parliament from within the province. You're going to see like we saw the transport minister, who's Dollar Central member of parliament. You get to see the mines minister, Paul Kabuswe.
Well, what led to that? And what led to that is what happened, in Chingola. I think the point is this: the youth wing of any political party, and I'll give an example of the Patriotic Front. Do you see how powerful the youth wing was of the Patriotic Front? The youth wing was very powerful that it was not going to be possible for a thug to attack the president. In fact, And when you speak of powerful, you need to also clarify that. Powerful in the sense that they'll be there. Is it violently powerful? No. Powerful in the sense that they'll be there to offer support. The first support will come from their party members of where the party, the president is coming from. And I think this is lacking in the UPND. Clearly, politically, I think this is lacking in the UPND. And I think the justification for why I'm speaking of the national chairman and him seemingly, if I should use the word that you've used, being sidelined, those stones must have come to the national youth chairman because those are the youth that were throwing the stones. The youth chairman must have been the one to receive the stones and not the Republican president. Why? Why? Because the youth chairman is in charge of the youth of the party. The youth chairman is the is the president's advisor when it comes to issues of the youth. The youth chairman must whisper to the president. The president must be able to.
But you see, Andrew,
every point, and let me finish my point. The issues in Senseli involve the young people. All right, who are the youth? Did Liswaneso go and address those?
But again, Andrew, one thing you need to also separate is, yes, he's the National Youth Chairman. His primary responsibility is around the youths of the party. If we're going to talk about youths generally, it's as good as saying even the people in the opposition youth wings are responsible for the youths around. So what I'm trying to drive to is at the same time we need to differentiate party governance and the government, the central government.
And unfortunately, we can't do that.
Because the thing is, you might as well bring in the Minister of Youths as well. Then you might as well bring in the Minister of Youths because in terms of
governance, you can't separate the two because you can't.
Because what you're talking about is not a political. You're talking about the minds, and you're talking about youths. So is that a political issue or is that a policy issue at government level?
It's both. It's a policy.
So what you're saying is it's politics.
It's politics at play. It's both a political and a policy issue. All right, and I think let me demonstrate this. Imagine a situation, Chimweka, if the president obviously has a calendar in terms of how he travels. The president knew already that he was going to go to Chingola, and the president perhaps was informed on how the ground is like in Chingola. If the youth chairman was sent there in Chingola to go and assess what the situation is like, he would have brought a report back to the president, and Mr. President, the youth are saying A, B, C, and D, and for you to engage them, we need to say A, B, C, and D. In fact, if the president did send the national youth chairman, and I've given an example, and let me finish.
Okay, let's get a nutshell. So what you're saying, we need to conclude. You need to conclude with this, Andrew, because so let's understand you. Maybe we don't understand. So what you're saying is one of the major problems is that the national youth chairman is sidelined. And that is one of the main reasons why we saw what we saw in Chingola. Is that what you're saying?
I think my major problem, I think what I've identified is that in most of these political engagements, the national youth chairman is not seen with the president, which is dangerous.
Is your conclusion that is one of the reasons why? That's one of the main reasons why we saw what we saw in Chingola. Is that your conclusion?
To some extent, I think the youth chairman must take a blame for what happened in Chingola because those are the youths. I was about to finish my point, Chimweka, over what could have possibly happened if, and I'm giving a theoretical explanation to what could have possibly happened. I don't know what the outcome could be, but I'm just giving a theoretical example of what could have been done politically. Because remember that beyond being a journalist, I'm a political scientist, and I did politics at the University of Zambia. The youth chairman is a very important office of any political party. The office of the youth chairman is a very important office of any political party. And I gave an example of Kenya. William Ruto, when William Ruto is addressing the youth, side by side with him is a youth chairman. Who do we see side by side with? We see Jito with President Hakainde Hichilema. Chimweka,
who's an advisor.
Who's an advisor to the president. But politically, he must have, have a youth who he can even throw jabs to that. Look, the reason for why these things are not being addressed is because of the national youth chairman.
But he's also with his political advisor side by side. Many times.
He's with his political advisor. He's with his line ministers as well.
I think
they are there.
If those people gave the president the right information, I don't think what happened could have happened.
But Andrew also,
and for me also, the police take a huge blame on what happened in Chingola.
And I guess that's why we've seen changes. We've seen changes to that effect. We've got a new police commissioner on the Copper Belt, Yuyi Mwala, if I'm not mistaken, if I got his name right, who has replaced Mr. Siandenge, who was in the Copper Belt, they've now swapped. So we've seen changes. At the same time, we've seen the ADC getting promoted. But we'll see how this will go. And I know that there's been a lot of blame that people have shifted towards some of the ministers there, the mines minister. We've seen some blame going towards the Copper Belt minister, especially what's been going on around the issues around mining there. But we understand that, number one, there's always a collective position that government is going to take. And I mean, we're talking about line ministers here. So there's a collective decision that cabinet makes, and they will listen to the president. If president makes a particular statement, and the president, according to him, he does not want to see lives getting lost. And that was his main concern when we talk about Senseli mine, leading to even the decision eventually that came from that. We've seen that obviously people in Chingola have not been very happy about it. Hence we saw riots where again, we saw people, different businesses getting to be affected. The president had to come through and make a donation. Again, and the 10 million kwacha was towards the market itself as well. But I mean, all that was, the president trying to show empathy. But I guess it also says a lot, really. I mean, people look at it from a political perspective of the UPND, but I was just being reminded by Dr. Fred Membe. I hosted him on Let the People Talk on Tuesday, and one thing he also mentioned was, if you remember, not too long ago, before he passed on, former President Edgar Lungu was in Chingola, and we were hearing stories that he was chased out of Chingola by purported cadres. And President Nijilema, when he was speaking in Kitwe on Sunday, he also made references. He was reflecting towards what happened about 10 days or so before the 2021 election, where he says he was nearly killed. So we're hearing all this, we're hearing UPND leader have issues within Chingola. We also heard a bit around former President Edgar Lungu having issues in Chingola. So maybe this issue is not about a political party per se, because if both sides have had their stories to tell, especially PF and UPND have got their stories to tell about a bad experience in Chingola,
but there must be a reason why.
Then I guess so who's to blame? Because if the UPND are saying PF and the PF will say UPND, then what's really is the issue?
Honestly, gentlemen, I really don't think Andrew, I really don't think if the National Youth Chairman was side by side with the president, I mean, we can't say that was not going to happen, really. I mean, what was the National Youth Chairman going to do? Even if he had his youth there.
So easy.
His youth are not the police, number one. The youth are not the police. They weren't going to contain the agitation from the people. Of course, the youth were going to behave in a certain way, perhaps to protect the president. I mean, you heard what obviously
actually it would have probably been backfired, because you'd have seen chaos.
Even pangas around, because I mean,
they would have retaliated.
We need to protect the president. So perhaps what you're saying is that it will even.
And that's what Andrew was saying. We need to separate politics from actually of professionally managing issues, because when you handle things on a political level, actually that would have backfired.
So the point is this, and I think, allow me to make the point home. So I said, if the National Youth Chairman was in the program of the president, he would have probably gone there 20 days before, or 30 days before, or 10 days before. He would have understood what the situation was like in the ground. Look at the leaders of the Jarabos. Is it Chimweka or is it Cheswa? Bring this together, ask them what the challenges are, because mostly these unruly guys get command from the bigger guys. That's how things work on the copper.
But are you saying the president didn't know about the situation? He's the head of state.
Is the intelligence? Are you saying what I saw
about the situation?
We'll get to the intelligence later. But let me finish my point. If the youth chairman was sent there, gives a report back to the president that, look, I found the situation like this, but there are these leaders that are speaking for these Jarabos. What chairman would have done was to be able to engage these guys, put them on the official program of the president. That when the president is speaking, he gets those two guys that are Jarabos, that are commanding authority for these guys, speak to their, to the public that our president not running a vena. If we our president, if we ni fine. you would have seen a different.
Okay, so Andrew,
let me finish the
You're
point.
giving the UPND political advice that they should have done things differently. They should.
okay, Andrew.
I'm speaking from point.
Andrew, here's okay, two things, right? Two things, because we need to conclude on this. Number one, even just his presence there. I was seeing, for example, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mulambo Haimbe.
Yeah.
He was part of the delegation that was in Kitwe. I saw him in Kitwe.
What for?
There, right? He was there. But this is a man who's a member of parliament in Lusaka.
In Lusaka.
He's foreign affairs minister. So
Yes, you'd wonder why.
I can quantify why I think he was there.
Why do you think he's there?
Why do you think
Because on the Copper Belt, I think there was a church service there where I think there was dignitaries
From Israel as well, yeah.
From Israel, and obviously there was a celebration around the reopening of the embassy again. You understand that he was foreign affairs minister, so he obviously is dealing with foreign
On the
affairs.
Copper Belt.
On the Copper Belt. So I think that's why he could have been on that team.
The Israelites.
I don't think there is any person who could go on a delegation with the president without any purpose. I mean, I think that those are well calculated.
And that's what I said. Probably, maybe, if the president would consider the very important office of the chairman. And I gave examples. I gave examples of Kenya, of Zimbabwe, on how you will not hear President Crocodile Mnangagwa being stoned. Even there's agitation.
Here's the second point, Andrew. Here's the second point. And I was listening to the president's advisor for investment, Jito Kayumba. And I think a lot of us also saw this, because before the president spoke, a number of people were speaking, right? And he was addressing a crowd of people right in front of him.
Yeah.
In the explanation of the president's advisor, he says the president was speaking to thousands of people who were calm as he was speaking. And he says there was just a small group.
No, that's not true.
A small group of people. That's in his defense. That's in their defense. He says a small, because how many have been arrested so far from what we're getting?
27.
So.
Well,
that's not true.
So that's
so.
I watched the videos, and I think that's misleading.
So what his argument is that. So now, for example, if all 27 are guilty, because I mean these are suspects. So if it's all 27, because again it might reduce, it might increase, but he says that's in comparison with a larger number of people.
And I think the president must be told the
so
truth.
should that be a measurement
and I think
of what the situation is?
I think Jeto's not helping the president if he's going to say that. He's not helping the president anymore.
But that's what he said. You heard that, right?
5 people, sir, are the ones that it can't be. You mean that the entire police service that was there failed to contain 5 people? I think we can't be taken for fools, Chimweka. No. And I don't think people that were watching that believed what Jito was saying. No, it can't be.
Well, perhaps
Sir,
maybe 5 was a figurative number.
The president is the head of state, is the commander-in-chief of armed forces. When the president is in an area, several police officers, several members of the intelligence, and other wings of government are there.
So,
for that thing to have been disturbed, it was calculated, and it was well played out, and obviously the police were outnumbered. If everybody was scampering about, so, Chimweka, it can't be 5 people.
Over 40.
No.
Are you saying over 40 officers were outnumbered?
Sir,
I mean, where the president is, you don't expect to have less than 40.
Of course.
The standard is obviously.
Why was the president whisked away? In fact, the report of the police, if you read the report word for word, it says that these Noli cadres were even throwing stones
at the motorcade.
Which means the target was very well known. The target was the president. The reason why the motorcade was even moving was because the police failed to contain these people.
And I guess maybe why we've also seen.
And the helicopter. In fact, if you look at other videos,
I guess that's why we've also seen changes at the leadership within the province at police level. And I think we saw these calls coming through from the UPND. I mean, let's also talk about the reaction, because that is what has prompted our conversation here. We saw the UPND Lusaka province chairman, Mr. Obvious Mwaliteta. He held a briefing on Monday. He was flanked by, one of the people he was flanked by was the Lusaka province chairman. Anderson Banda. And what they were saying is that they were about 15,000 youths were ready to go to the Copper Belt with 8 buses.
Buses were ready.
8 buses ready to carry 15,000 youths.
For me, it fits into what Jito was saying.
So to go and follow about 5 people, so 5. I mean, that's what we got. But what he said was that they had to be stopped because they were ready to leave and ready to travel. I don't know if they're going to use Marco Polo buses. I don't know if they'll still fit as 15,000 in 8 buses. But they said they're ready to leave, but they had to be stopped because they are respecting the president's wishes. However, gentlemen, getting back to the member of parliament there, to make a statement like that, yes, we know that the Secretary General of their party has reaffirmed that the president's stance of if you harass anyone, you're on your own is still there. And he said it yesterday in a briefing. But I guess this also speaks a lot into generally how even members of the party get to react to the president's directives. Because if you're going to have people who would defy the president's directives, then what really is going on? What kind of insubordination? And before you come in, Andrew, and it's not even just at party level, even at governance level. I was reading an article by Sir Dixon Jerry, is it yesterday or today? And he wrote an article about, I think there was a conference, an engagement he was attending on the Copper Belt, I think to do with farmers. And during this engagement, he says it was an honest engagement. And during this engagement, the leader of should have been the union, if I'm not mistaken, had said, because the president was in attendance, and he said to the president, saying, Mr. President, from all the things that you said you promised you'd do for us last year, none of them have been done.
Wow.
None of them have been done. Nothing has been done. And when the president spoke, he expressed shock. He said, wow, I'm actually surprised that nothing has been done because I gave these directives. And he says, look, let's meet at State House soon so that we now discuss the way forward. And Mr. Dixon Jerry's comment was, I mean, these are things that the president should not be doing. It should not be. They're PSS, they're directors, they're ministers. So meaning if the president makes a directive like that and for 1 year nothing is done, then what are people doing in the process?
That's true.
So meaning the president has said something and you should be taking action, but nothing, that is not happening.
Yeah.
So even at party level, if the president, even in Kitwe, he said it, in Tanzania, he said it, that he's had people who have wanted to be unruly from his party, he stopped them.
Stop them from being unruly.
And then you have a member of parliament, a politician, coming through and saying, Kadarism is back.
He's back.
And it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see if the UPND would take action on that member.
Well, I would actually be very interested to hear what the National Youth Chairman has to say about the member of parliament who says Kadarism is back. Because, I mean, Mr. Lisoniso is one of the first to warn members of parliament not to, first of all, go independent in next year's election. He's the first to warn. He talks about Ndale. We joke about that. But, I mean, I'm now wondering, Chimweka, if there was a member of parliament who was booed in church, I think that was the Kwacha.
The Kwacha member of parliament.
And Yoba Lisoniso was here saying, I mean, the member of parliament didn't play his cards right in Ndale. President Ndale. So I'm wondering now how a head of state could be in an area.
It's very difficult.
And that happens.
It's very difficult. The UPND are very difficult.
That's really unacceptable.
Politically, gentlemen, the UPND find themselves in a very difficult situation. This is a party that came into office amidst high levels of cadreism and hooliganism that was perpetrated by the Patriotic Front. The youths of the UPND admired the lifestyle that the youths of the PF had. And automatically what the UPND thought when they win elections is they're going to take over bus stations, they're going to live lavish lives like how the Patriotic Front youths used to live. Here they're in government. And HH makes a very controversial statement that you not live a life like how the Patriotic Front used to live. You live a normal life, an ordinary life like anybody else. You will not collect monies in bus stops. You will not collect monies anywhere because you're going to allow for the rule of law, to be as is. There's frustration in the UPND because these things are not done. 4 years, gentlemen, we've not heard of any major, cadreism card being played because the people have been following the words of the president and that of the National Chairman that if you find yourself in trouble or beating
you're on your
anybody else, you're on your own. All right?
Which is a good thing.
And now this happens. So now they're, and I can see the frustration from obvious Mwaliteta. The frustration is that, look, the president has stopped us from exercising our powers to be able to bounce back, to these guys that troubled us in the Patriotic Front. We have to restrain ourselves because there's a presidential and a national youth chairman directive that we mustn't do this. Kasauta MP for Wengwa, is frustrated that, look, the cadres, we have cadres in the UPND, but they can't proceed and do this because there's a directive from Liswaniso and the directive from the president. And so the cadres are at a place where there's so much frustration. They want to come out there and show that, look, we've got the powers to protect the president. We're not protecting the president because the president says, I don't want cadreism. I want the police to be able to be the ones to protect me. And so you can understand the frustration. Even when that gentleman, the MP, was saying that, they say that wamenea leader also misozi. Okay, the person who is crying, let them cry. Obviously, what obviously what they were saying was from a point of frustration, even not obvious Mwaliteta. And I've seen several videos of youth leaders of the UPND expressing disappointment over what happened in Chingola, and they're warning the youths of Chingola. You can understand that they're coming from a point of frustration because their president has been threatened, and this is the Republican president who's been threatened, and this is their political party president. They said, look, when HH was in opposition, we, the UPND cadres, are the ones that protected the president. Yeah. And there was not a point when his life was at threat. They protected the president, and they're blaming the police that, look, now the president is in your hands, you're failing to protect him. Probably the right people to protect the president is us, the cadres of the UPND. This is what the UPND are saying.
Well, it's something that, again, we're still following up on. We're still getting reports and updates of people being arrested in connection with what had happened. So we'll continue following up on that and let the police do their job, because that's what professionally is supposed to be happening. They need to let the police do their job. And we look forward to seeing how the police command will operate under the new leadership within the Copperbelt province with a new police commissioner there. But gentlemen, moving on to more of what's been happening in this country. Today we got information coming through from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation that President Hakainde Hichilema, for the first time, will be making his first state visit to Zimbabwe. But we'll talk about this right after we come back from this break. We still have more stories to talk about, including the energy sector. People today who drive diesel vehicles have been struggling. Even on my way here, I was refueling somewhere, and the person right behind me struggled. They had to bounce because there was no diesel at the filling station. That's coming up next.
Well, thanks so much for still staying with us. Before we went on a break, Chimweka was complaining of the fact that as he was coming here, the person who was behind him couldn't get diesel because there's a countrywide shortage of diesel.
I was seeing this from morning. People have been posting online, where can I get diesel in this area? Where can I get... I just thought it was just one of those issues, but I think as the day was getting by, it was getting worse. And even just for me, and because you colleagues know, the car I drive, most people think is a diesel machine. So even as I was getting to the filling station, I could see the hesitancy from the from the fuel attendant, where he's ready to just make me bounce.
Petrol.
So I tell him, petrol. He says, oh, it's petrol. And then he puts petrol. And I think also maybe the car that was behind me also thought my car was a diesel. So it comes through and eventually had to bounce. But that's the reality of what has been experienced today. We've had so many people talking about this. But we also heard from the Minister of Energy.
Yeah, well, the situation is very true, Chimweka. We have got petrol, but diesel is what we have in shortage. At the moment, what the Ministry of Energy is doing is they're trying to work around the clock to ensure that they stabilize the situation. At the moment, in the reserve, we've got about 57,000 liters of diesel and 40,000 liters of petrol. The challenge is not as a result of depleted reserves. I think, according to what the minister was explaining, the challenge is a result of logistical, challenges from the port to here. But this is what the minister said.
Fellow countrymen, women, and the youths, I wish to update the fuel supply situation in the country. The Ministry of Energy acknowledges reports of fuel shortages experienced across the country over the past few days. Following these reports, the ministry has put in place short and long-term measures to address the problems and prevent their recurrence. The ministry further wishes to inform the nation that as of yesterday, Tuesday, 11th November 2025, the country had 57,385,360 liters of diesel and 40,082,000 liters of petrol. The temporal supply disruptions were purely logistical and not as a result of depleted reserves. The ministry expects the situation to stabilize soon as normal fuel supply resumes across the country. The government apologizes to the public for the inconvenience caused and assures the nation of its continued commitment to maintain a stable and reliable supply of petroleum products throughout Zambia. I thank you very much, countrymen, women, and the youths.
I think it's very clear, and I think what I like from what the minister said is, government acknowledging that this is real, and I think what we've seen from the past is that even when things are not okay, you see a government official, a minister stating that it's opposite. I like the fact that government acknowledges that this is a problem, and they're working around ensuring that they address the problem in the quickest time. And the minister is assuring the public that this will be resolved soon, and in fact he goes on to apologize.
Yeah, must be tough. I think this is the toughest time to be energy minister, really. People are complaining, no electricity this side, but complaining no fuel, there's no diesel this side. I think it's a very tough time for the minister. But I think now be up to the people. They be understanding. Will they take the assurance from government? And I think that's now the biggest question, because the energy sector is quite key to our country. I mean, if people who don't have electricity, they're leaving home, they're trying to drive out, they don't even have fuel in their vehicles, they don't have diesel in their vehicles. It becomes quite a challenge, and I know there's different factors, and part of them being external that have to be dealt with. And the truth is, for a lot of people, they will not get to understand that. That's just the fact of the matter. Some people will not get to understand that, because at the end of the day, people want to see results, and they want to see them getting to consume some of these essentials, and the energy sector, like we've mentioned, being quite key.
Well, I mean, there's also, quite many factors I think we need to look at if you're talking about transportation, especially for those that have to bring in fuel into the country using, land. You're obviously talking about issues that happened in Tanzania not long ago. I mean, you're talking, the violence and spots of violence there that obviously could have restricted, movements. I mean, people couldn't offload and so on. So I think that it's quite understandable for the delays, and it's good that the minister, talks about it. But what's important also is we hope that there could be a much faster way to get the fuel. I mean, it's very inconvenient. I mean, if energy, like Chimweka is saying, is the lifeblood of any economy. So we'd like to put it that way.
All right, that's around that. Cheswa spoke of Tanzania when the president attended the inauguration last week. There was a lot of talk, a lot of reactions. Those who understand and see the justification, and I guess why people also see a lot of importance of why he had to travel to Tanzania. But others felt that he shouldn't have done that because of all the controversy there leading to the election of President Samia Suluhu Hassan. And one of the things that a lot of President Hichilema's critics have brought up is he attended the inauguration in Tanzania, but he's not had a state visit in Zimbabwe. He never even attended the inauguration himself in Zimbabwe, who have been, of course, because we come under the same federal government, the Rhodesian government, we were pretty much one country.
That's true.
And the president not being there, so much skepticism came around. I think it worsened people's talks around the relationship between the two countries. But now we've got a news from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation that President Hakainde Hichilema has been invited to Zimbabwe, where he will meet his counterpart there, Emmerson Mnangagwa. And I think it's about time. This will be his first state visit to that country. Last week on the Phoenix FM Breakfast Show, we had an interview with Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation himself, Mlambo Haimbe, and we did take time to ask him around the relationship between Zambia and Zimbabwe, and he admitted saying, yes, there were issues. There have been issues, and I think for a while, there's been a lot of... they've been trying to almost like run away from that issue.
Quite clear.
They haven't been quite clear. But last week, and we have him on record, says, yes, we have had issues, but now we have those issues resolved. And I remember him saying, in fact, there's something that's coming. He just couldn't say then, but I guess this is what it was.
I think that it's been a long time coming. I mean, this is the first state visit to that country. I mean, obviously, we were getting a lot of issues around Zimbabwe and the president there and Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, to a point that the perceived issues around that the presidents don't even talk, and so on. But it will be good. I mean, they've met, of course, before in different fora, but it will be good to undertake this state visit. I mean, the visit, obviously, like we're taught by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, would touch issues around trade, infrastructure, and
Binational issues generally.
So, gentlemen, I think the reason I'm clapping, gentlemen, is because I didn't see this happen.
You didn't see it coming?
Politically, I didn't see this coming. And from what has been happening from the time that President Hakainde Hichilema became president, and Mnangagwa, again also became president. I've visited Zimbabwe, I think, 3 times. And I think every time I go into Zimbabwe, conversations have been around, if I speak to members of parliament, in Zimbabwe, conversations have been around the relationship that Zambia has with Zimbabwe and how this is deteriorating. This was worsened by the interview that President Mnangagwa had in Russia, where he even mentioned that the Americans are building a military base in Zambia, and the relationship that Zambia has with the U.S., the crush that the U.S. had with Russia, and President Mnangagwa was of the idea that we are enemies. The two of us, are enemies. But also we did see sentiments coming from senior members of ZANU-PF and members of parliament, speaking very ill. In fact, the Secretary General of ZANU-PF, speaking very ill about our president, in Zambia. And I think those sentiments just deteriorated the relationship that, we had with Zimbabwe. Every time there's an event in Zimbabwe, the Minister of Foreign Affairs will go, or any other minister, and the president would not go there clearly because of these unresolved issues. When there was an election in Zimbabwe, the election, was really questioned by SADC.
And just on that, Andrew, sorry to catch you. Just on that, because I mean, even as much as we speak of it, I think even the genesis, the background to it, I think what also made it a bit difficult was the fact that President Hakainde Hichilema, I mean, there've been pictures where he was seen with, Chamisa, who was an opposition leader who was going against President Mnangagwa in the political race. So I think there's a lot of people who had the understanding that the two have had a relationship. And I think it's also been a trend in African politics that a lot of opposition leaders in one country who want to support opposition leaders in another country, and maybe because they share the same story or their struggle to assume political office. So usually there's certain ties that get to be created. And there was that, and like you've mentioned, when President Hichilema was chairman, he had assigned that the head of the observer mission into the election in Zimbabwe will be Dr. Nevas Mumba, who's Zambia's former vice president. And when the reports were made, those reports had a conclusion that those elections did not meet the SADC, or as I like to say, SADC democratic requirements. The same way we've seen the preliminary report say the same thing about Tanzania. So I think even from that, there's a lot of conclusions around what exactly could be pushed from the Zambian side, from President Hichilema and through the observer mission head of observer mission that he appointed.
There was a lot of offensive from the Zimbabwean side, even when I couldn't think of anyone from Zambia, from top government officials who spoke ill about Zimbabwe, but there was a lot of offensive weapons coming from Zimbabwe to Zambia. And I think I love how diplomatically Haimbe dealt with these issues. Even when you'd push him hard to address these issues, you'd be very diplomatic on how he handles the issues of Zimbabwe. But I think they acted like thugs in court, because they're so offensive, on us as Zambia. But it's good that now these issues are being resolved. This is a huge visit for us as a country. If the president is going to Zimbabwe to meet President Mnangagwa, the undertone issues that were coming out of Zimbabwe or out of the Zambian people, in fact, the opposition blamed HH for not going to Zimbabwe. The biggest allegation...
In fact, the opposition attended the inauguration.
Yes, the biggest allegation which was there, in fact, President Edgar Lungu attended the inauguration. The biggest allegation which was there was that perhaps ZANU-PF is still in talks with the Patriotic Front. And in fact, even when, there was JJ at the time was missing, the allegations was that he was in Zimbabwe and was being protected by the government of Zimbabwe. When Waimi went missing, allegations were that was in Zimbabwe and that the Zimbabwean government are doing everything to protect these people that are perceived to be Patriotic Front, and this created some form of unmorphic.
But just on that again, Andrew, recently it seems the president sort of just nullified some of those thoughts, because when he was speaking when he was addressing UPND members at the Mulungushi International Conference Center, Lusaka province members of the UPND, and he was speaking towards how they've been fighting corruption and past crimes and so on, he made reference to former Kwacha Member of Parliament, Joe Malanji, who was also Foreign Affairs Minister, the issue of the helicopters. And his words, paraphrased, were that this is a man who says he acquired his wealth genuinely, he had all these helicopters genuinely, but as soon as we formed office, suddenly these helicopters were being flown out of the country into South Africa, into Zimbabwe. And what he said was, to bring back those planes,
He had to call
those presidents. He had to call the president of South Africa and say, hey, I need something from there. And that helicopter found its way back. And he said the same thing about Zimbabwe. He says he had to call his colleague there.
So they've actually been talking.
That would be a summary of that, because if you can make calls like that, and and those helicopters find their way back, then it means they've been having conversations.
I think this year there's progressively been, we've seen that this relationship has been slowly coming together. We did see a delegation from ZANU-PF that went to State House to meet the president. We also saw the second vice president of Zimbabwe, General Chimweka, coming to Zambia to meet the president and pass his condolences, for the death of former President Edgar Lungu. And so I think this year has been a path that we've been trying to heal the wounds that were there in our relationship, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And I think for me, it's kudos to President Hakainde Hichilema, for this visit. Zimbabwe has been our all-weather, friendly partner. The relationship that Zambia has with Zimbabwe dates back as far back, as possible. And this relationship has been very strong in our governments. In fact, President Mnangagwa spent his time in Zambia.
Went to school here.
At the time that he was chased with his father, I've read his book, was chased with his father, he came to do school here. He was working in Zambia. He did law at the University of Zambia.
He said actually he was senior to President Lungu.
In fact, when he was getting the honorary degree,
honorary doctorate.
The honorary doctorate, they got it together with President Edgar Lungu. So his roots are in Zambia. Some of his relatives are in this country. You can't separate President Mnangagwa from Zambia. I had an opportunity to go to State House in Zimbabwe with Jonah. And I think when I introduced myself, to say I'm Andrew Mwansa from Zambia, he had so much to say about Zambia. He even told me about villages that I don't know, and he was telling me about the relatives that are there, in Zambia. So it shows you that this man has his roots in Zambia, and I think there's nothing that can destroy the bond that exists between our country and Zimbabwe.
I mean, you were trying to paint a picture, Andrew, earlier that there could nothing that could happen to Mnangagwa. I mean, he could never be stoned. I got a video just now that happened 7 years ago about an explosive that happened at an election rally in Zimbabwe. And so you can't be here, Andrew, and tell us that people could fail to throw stones at a leader in Zimbabwe when there was an explosive, an entire explosive.
I think those are two different issues.
How, Andrew?
How they,
That's actually worse. That's worse.
Disruption
That's
in
worse.
Zimbabwe, and
So
you
you're saying,
you
that's
can't
worse.
paint this picture.
That's worse.
Here that. I think we need to put that in context. I think you needed to clarify on
I was very clear, gentlemen, here that
on that item.
I was very clear here, gentlemen.
So saying that, what you said, yes, is that stones couldn't be thrown at him, but if a bomb can be, I think that's.
So that's what saying that.
It's very,
according
very.
to what he's saying, I don't know what the source, whether the
No,
source is correct.
I've just after your statement, I received a video saying that.
And that was under is it ENC or SABC? One of the two.
One of the two. There's a story reported that
There was a
President.
bomb planted
Yes.
at a campaign rally.
Well, whether it
That's
was
different.
planted or it
But
was
that's different,
thrown.
Cheswa and Chimweka. We're talking about people throwing stones at the president.
But actually,
and not a bomb being planted.
even a bomb being planted is worse.
But what we're saying is that that's worse.
because a
Andrew.
place
It's
is
not worse.
vetted before a president goes there.
It's not
And
worse.
It's different from people that just mushroom.
It's not worse,
when an
Andrew.
activity is happening.
Are you sure about that?
They had no control.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
In that moment, look, the police in this regard had control of their newly 5 cadres that Jito speaks about. Had control of those 5 people.
Gentlemen, we need to go. We need to go.
But Andrew Mwansa, come on, even the police can have control over a bomb that is planted. They vet the place before a president gets into an area. You can't have an explosive weapon.
So must he retract his statement?
Sir, the president.
So I think you need to paint a clear picture to the public.
Mr. Chimweka,
No, Mr. Mwansa, I think you need to paint a clear picture to the public.
Before elections, he was nearly shot.
So what are you saying about
that? Trump was nearly shot before the elections. All right, this is and the neutral when the
And
CIA,
that is in the United States of America.
they neutralize that those elements as soon as possible. When that bullet missed President Trump, they neutralize that. Okay,
All right.
What I was saying was that
We'll continue this conversation off air, gentlemen. We have to go now. Thank you so much for watching tonight's edition of Diamond Live. I mean, we were expecting some guests to join us this evening. Unfortunately, they were not able to join us tonight, but we continue making efforts to get in touch with them so that they can appear and interact with you as well, our viewers. So we appreciate you being here. My name is Chimweka, Chileshe.
My name is Andrew Mwansa.
I'm Cheswa, Peter Kapasa. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday.